And this is the second and final video for shortcuts for February 15th. This is a selection of classic rock, punk, ska, pop, and a little bit more. Some weirdness, in a good way. Last week, we talked about Tom Verlaine, lead singer and guitarist of Television, who passed away aged 73. Whilst I don't have a copy of Marquee Moon, what I do have is pretty beautiful. This is a Japanese first press of Words from the Front. This is Tom Verlaine's third solo album after the breakup of Television, after the relative difficulties of recording Adventure. And it's maybe my second favourite Tom Verlaine solo album behind Flashlight, which I think is the high water mark. Words from the Front, you will recognise the Marquee Moon style, pristine solo with those rising arpeggios and that tension that he creates. You will 100% recognise that. But you might be surprised by how romantic some of the songs are. Songs like Postcard from Waterloo, or Cleared Away, but particularly Postcard from Waterloo. Actually, some of the songs on side 2 of Marquee Moon have a drama, and so, you'll hear the lineage. Anyway, I think his voice is amazing on this record. It's a little bit of that kind of, 80s drum beat that you'll hear. The guitar playing is just extraordinary, though. And it is lovely to hear Tom Verlaine in a slightly different setting. Fred Smith plays bass on some of the songs as well from MC5, from that whole era. I love it. It's Japanese first press too. It sounds great. What about this? This is iconic. This is the Japanese first press of Hounds of Love, a Kate Bush. First time I've ever had this record on Japanese press for you guys. If you look online, you look up the charts from the time that this record was released, and there's all sorts of interesting stuff in there. Songs from The Big Chair, Tears for Fears, some classics that you will recognize. Born in the USA and all those big ones. But what I love are quite a few weeks in the charts where number 3 was Brothers in Arms, Dire Straits. You might have heard of it. Number 2, Like a Virgin, Madonna. Little known, small pop record. And number 1, Hounds of Love, Kate Bush. This rather wild concept record, 2-side, Hounds of Love on one, The Ninth Wave on the other. Running Up That Hill, The Big Sky and Cloud Busting being the singles, all crowded onto side 1, but side 2 being this utterly odd but compelling story. She's amazing, and this album is rightfully one of the greatest of all time. Cannot recommend it highly enough. And the Japanese first press sounds awesome. Alright, what about some jangle pop? This is the debut album, Japanese pressing with Obi, of Aztec Camera, Roddy Frame and the boys. It's just pleasure-inducing music. And, Rough Trade at the time had a slew of some of the best bands in the world. And a young Roddy Frame with everything in front of him. It's innocent and lovely. and well worth a listen. This sleeve's something else. Look at this. The Man from Utopia, Frank Zappa. So 80s Zappa. This is the Zappa era with Steve Vai and, you know, some stellar and quite extraordinary guitar playing. This sleeve being a play on an incident when he was on stage in Italy. It may have been Palermo. You can see here the Italian signs. And the band were attacked by a swarm of mosquitoes. So you can see Frank Zappa trying to swat the mosquitoes. And on the back side, he's still there with his swatter. But you can see the tone of the backside is a bit different because this is reference to, I think it was a South American gig on this very same tour that resulted in a riot. This is the record that's got Cocaine Decisions, which is does exactly what it says in the tin. It's a deeply fascinating record. I mean, he rarely made boring music, and this one's no exception. For the Zappa fans out there, you'll get a lot of pleasure out of that. But I prefer this record. This is Tikal by Method Man. This is the very rare, and I mean very rare, US first press on the Def Jam label, the classic Def Jam label, in really good condition. The first solo album released by anyone from the Wu-Tang Clan after the absolutely cataclysmic success of 36 Chambers. It's dark and murky and grimy. RZA's beats are positively subterranean. It almost sounds like it's that the sounds coming through the fog of a marijuana den. You feel grimy yet more alive for having given it a listen. And I also like its brevity. There's the temptation in the CD age, particularly with hip-hop records, to just expand beyond the quality control of the tunes that were being put forward. This is a single record where every note is killer. As is this record here, The Runaways, Queens of Noise, punk rock from the all-female Sherry Curry, Lita Ford, Joan Jett, Jackie Fox. Just their second record, it's just silly and fun and surprisingly melodic. And I know they have their fans, and so those of you who like Kim Filey and that weird setup, you can have a bit of fun with the Queens of Noise. This next record is unusual. I've never seen it before. It's the best of George Harrison with a rather beautiful sleeve. And interestingly, I think this is a Japan-only release. I've never seen it anywhere else. Well, maybe someone can come back to me and let me know. The side one is a pick of the cream of his Beatles songs. So you've got Something, If I Needed Someone, Here Comes the Sun, Taxman, For Your Blues, While My Guitar Gently Sleeps. But then side two is the pick of the best of his first 4 or 5 solo records from All Things Must Pass and onwards. You got My Sweet Lord, Give Me Love, You, Dark Horse, What Is Life. So it truly is the best of George Harrison because it's the Beatles and George. And so I'm not quite sure how they got that licensed, but they did. So on to a different George. This is Faith, George Michael. In this house, this is the most popular record from the 80s. It gets played all the time because it's utterly wonderful, and the Japanese pressing sounds great, as does the Japanese pressing of this, going back to even more George. Abbey Road, their best sounding album, maybe just their best album, and this is a beautiful copy. I always pick this up, as you guys know. Don't Stand Me Down by Dexy's Midnight Runners, their third album, and a work of pretty much semi-unadulterated genius from start to finish. Knowledge of Beauty is one of my favourite songs. First time I've ever had this, a Japanese first press of Graceland. Interestingly, you still get the full discourse in English. They haven't completely moved on from the English and translated into Japanese. But a very pristine and bass-heavy version. If you get it, if you like that record, you're going to be very happy. Now, this is somewhat less audiophile. This is a Jamaican first press on the Studio One label of Strictly For You by Alfonso, Pablo and others, playing early ska. I know there are some ska fans out there. This one recorded in Studio 5, 15 Brentford Road, Kingston, Jamaica. Distributed by West Indies Records. Yeah, I really, well, you know, for those of you who are Specials fans or fans of that upbeat ska, gang, kind of crossover, you're going to have a lot of fun with that. Now, this is a Japanese first press on gold foil of Wheels of Fire by Cream, where the inside is just as dramatic as the sleeve. Best looking and cleanest copy of this I have ever seen. It's spectacular. That's Cream, Wheels of Fire. Now, up with Kudu, this is Brain, my favourite record label. I always pick up things from Brain Records. They're always odd and great. This is no different. This is Concerta by Novalis. A bit of full-on krautrock prog. It's a trip. And it's great. All right. Coming toward the end of this week's selection, maybe not the most famous Queen record. This is jazz, and it got that really quite cool representation of playing an album. This is my missus's favourite Queen album. Fat Bottom Girls, Bicycle Race, Let Me Entertain You, and of course, Don't Stop Me Now. Maybe their greatest song, but it's without doubt got their greatest poster. This is utterly fabulous. So that is the Fat Bottom Girls on the Bicycle Race. You can see here, Bicycle Race, Fat Bottom Girls, Queen's new single for Elektra Records. How odd. And then, for those of you who are fans of the Trojan label, I've got a white label promo of some roots reggae, Rock in the Ghetto by Trinity. Very melodic, chilled, really nicely recorded. Not quite dub, but certainly got some studio echo. They've obviously been listening to King Tubby and the Mad Professor, but rather lovely it is too. Now, in the jazz selection, I had Gaucho by Steely Dan, because really it kind of is a jazz record. But Katy Lied is not a jazz record. This is a classic rock record. From Black Friday through to Gold Teeth and Chain Lightning. This is just a brilliant album. Walter Becker, Donald Fagen at their best. Yeah, maybe their best album. It's hard to tell. There's so many great ones. But Katy Lied is right up there. And so how do you round out a smorgasbord like that? Well, I think there's only a way. Nightclubbing. Grace Jones. 5 words. Pull up to the bumper. One of the greatest singles of the 80s. You cannot go wrong with a bit of Grace. So there you have it. That's the end of the selection for shortcuts for February 15th. I hope you found something interesting, something piqued your interest. Hit that subscribe button, give me some feedback, and watch out for the list, 9 p.m. on Wednesday evening. And thank you for watching. Bye.